my week with these wonderful pastors and ministry leaders and people who love the fact that the King is coming any day, and I think Pastor Barry and I bonded yesterday because he told me something I believe. He said, "You can never have too many cats." Okay? So I've got lots of cats, and people who love them are my instant friend, and Barry maybe will take care of them in the millennium, I hope. So, okay, we're going to go real quickly through. Apparently, the Lord wants us to be looking at some signs. Signs are a herald of His coming. And, the Pharisees missed the signs of Jesus' first coming. And the implication was, don't miss the signs of His next coming. And what I've done here for today is I'm going to have us look at probably what I would consider the 10 most prominent things that happened in the 2018, in the past year. And some of them may go over a little bit beyond that too, but I'm going to look, and I could pick 110 because so much is happening. And things are all falling in place, and that's the good news. Now, some of the issues that are taking place are troubling, and we'll consider them. And I'm going to spend just an extra few minutes on what I think is the number one sign. The number one issue is in Israel, and I'm saving that till the end, not because it's lesser in importance, it's just huge, but I want to end on a positive note, because the first 9 things that I'm going to consider aren't all that positive, and I want us to end, really positive, looking up and hopeful. And so I'm going to start with now you'll have to forgive me because, okay. Do I have them? Thank you. That's what I've been waiting for. Thank you so much. 21st century technology. It's wonderful. And so I'm going to start with this number one issue and I'm going to spend a little extra time on it, okay? So bear with me. Then other issues we're going to talk on will be a lot less time. But on this one, I feel that we have to spend. I'm just trying to get adjusted to everything. And that is the conflict between globalism and nationalism and chaos in Europe. And here's why I think this is so huge. Now, I think we're pretty much, my hunch is everyone here feels that an Antichrist is going to arise out of your ancient revived Roman Empire, etc. And what has to happen first is this globalism effort, this push to a one-world system. You and I know it as Antichrist system. I don't know that the perpetrators, the George Soroses and company, know that, but it's the rush to the one-world system. And I believe the headquarters of that will be Europe. So we're going to look at some of these specific issues concerned. Now, the future of globalism stands at a crossroads. Now, because of Brexit, all sorts of things, the Yellow Vest movement in Europe, right now the globalist effort in Europe is hurting. But here's the person who has thrown them the biggest monkey wrench that they didn't anticipate. He came along, he said this in September, but he said it before that. He just says, you know what, guys, I'm not one of you. I'm not a globalist. He said, I got to look out for Pittsburgh, not Paris, okay? And, thank God for that. I mean, Hillary Clinton Global Initiative, does it get any more obvious than that? The globalist effort, this gentleman, God used Donald Trump to put a stop. It was roaring, it was ready to blossom. Here in probably 2016, God said, it's not time yet. So A Wall Street Journal, from Brexit to Trump to the rise of nationalist parties across Europe, the old division between left and right is giving way to a battle of self-styled patriots and confounded globalists. I love the term, confounded globalists. Confounded globalists. So what they did, this is now I'm going back to 2017. In 2017, they fielded a young man that they thought might be able to bring the globalist effort together. Emmanuel Macron, we could do a whole hour on Emmanuel Macron. He's just a suspicious character, and he is the arch globalist. He says there's no such thing as a French culture. He's the Prime Minister of France, and he said it because his vision is not France. His vision is globalism, is one world. And by the way, globalists can be, if we're talking even America, they can be Republicans, they can be Democrats. Paul Ryan was a globalist. He just stepped down, of course. So the political party really means nothing. But just for a minute, let's dwell on Emmanuel Macron. And as Jack and I talked about Wednesday evening, he has The Economist magazine called him Europe's savior, ? First of all, they asked, can Trump be Europe's salvation? Well, no. Trump's the one who's thrown Europe the curveball. So now they're saying, how about Emmanuel Macron? Can he be Europe's savior? He's walking on water. He says he's going to govern like a Roman god. There are all sorts of interesting things about him. Again, he says there's no such thing as a French culture. That's the globalist view. Here he says he's putting together a coalition, a 10-nation coalition of the willing. Now, am I saying he's the Antichrist? No, because we got to be so careful with that. And I know people love to say, well, he's a candidate and he's a candidate. And I really believe we are to discern the times. The sons of Issachar were men who understood the times. So I think we can speculate like this. But the thing is, when we start naming these people and it doesn't pan out, then we have egg on our face and the unbelieving world laughs at us even more than they already are. But Europe, let's just think about Europe here. They brace leaders for more chaos. And again, the yellow vest movement, and that's spreading from country to country, the yellow vests. And it's because those people don't like big government. They don't like the globalist effort. They're trying to claim their countries back. So anyway, now, all of this, just hold on a minute because I just want to give you a little bit of background. The globalist effort goes back to Nimrod. For 5,000 years, these folks have been trying to install their one world system. They've used the Kabbalah, they've used the Rosicrucians, they've used the Masons, they've used the Council on Foreign Relations, they've used the League of Nations, they've used the United Nations, they've used some more modern day efforts. They have tried for 5,000 years to install a new world order. Do they know that's Antichrist's kingdom? I don't know. I don't hang out with George Soros so that I can ask him. I mean, do they have some inside connection to the dark world? I have no idea. They probably do, but I don't know. I live for the light of the world, not this kind of darkness. So they have even invaded fashion. Now, what I would really like to do, and I'm not going to do it because I can't take the time for one thing and it's pretty dark for another, but even the world of fashion and children's fashion. Some of you may know of Celine Dion. She's a Canadian singer, and she's promoting the New World Order. You see her there with one eye, and she's got a line of children's clothing. I'm just going to spend a minute here. Look, these people are very dark, okay? If you're happy with what the Antichrist agenda is, you have to be pretty dark. So she's come up with, along with 2 Israeli designers, some gender-neutral children's clothing, promoting the New World Order. So now the New World Order is being thrust on babies and young children and toddlers. Remember, this has been an effort going on since Babylon, 5,000 years ago, going on year after year after year after year, this New World Order. And now if you go to her website for this new clothing, remember, children's clothing. Are we really going to get dark with children's clothing? What you can't see, perhaps, is that little child right there on your left. The hat is full of skulls. You go to her home page for the Celine clothing. Again, she's not the designer, she's a promoter. It's Celine New World Order. That's children's clothing, but that's the home page. So my point is, it's a dark world, but the Antichrist world is dark. Now, that's why I'm just spending extra minutes on this particular issue for the last year. I think this has come into full fruition. Of course, it doesn't really doesn't blossom until the church is gone. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is being this is being thrust on children. And if I were to show you the entire line of the children's clothing, you've even got the Baphomet symbols all over the children's clothing. So this is how far the New World Order has come in 5,000 years. And should it be a surprise? All the way back in 1957, Henry Spock said, "What we want is a man of sufficient stature to hold the alliances of all people and to lift us out of the economic morass into which we are sinking. Send us such a man, and be he God or devil, we will receive him." So they're waiting for a man that will come and lead this New World Order. We know who that is. We don't know his name. We just know his office. His office is that of Antichrist. And when you see all the chaos about borders, again, the border situation, it's all about having one world. One world. No borders, single government. Now here's the thing. What these folks will tell you is, we'll have equal pay, equal income. Everyone will be equal with this plan of ours, this one world system. And of course, you can even ask, the Venezuelans how that's working out. The plan doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's diabolical. What does the Bible say? The Bible talks about this one world idea here in Revelation 13, and we can read it. It was given unto him to make war with the saints, to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. So the Bible tells us there is coming a new world order. And that's why there's been a 5,000-year effort to bring this about. And here it is. This is the New World Order. This is the globalist. This is how it's all going to play out. It's a 7-year fulfillment of what they've been trying to get for 5,000 years. They get 7 years, and it's hell on earth because it's without God. You can't have any kind of order, new world, old world, whatever. You can't have it without God. But the tribulation, that's the 7-year globalist paradise, where mountains are falling on people, where the birth pangs are going to be so incredibly horrific that, I'll get to that in just a moment. So I want to spend a little extra time. I've got a whole DVD called Hidden in Plain View, The New World Order and Bible Prophecy, where we look much more closely. Today I'm trying to look at 10 signs that I feel are really prominent for our day, particularly the year we've just left, heading into a new year. And I think this is one of the biggest. Keep your eyes on Europe, okay? I know that's difficult for Americans. Americans want to look at America. We've got to look to Europe here granted, Donald Trump threw them a monkey wrench in 2016. They thought they were in like Flynn with Hillary Clinton and her globalist agenda. And God just said, hang on, I'm not quite ready for the globalist plan quite yet. Number 2, the intrusion of big tech into our lives and the rise of artificial intelligence. Okay, this has been going on for years. But it was in the last year that the tech giants actually came out and they said to us, we're spying on you. They said to us, we're listening to you, we're watching you. You can't go anywhere without us knowing. We know where you are. This last year has been absolutely stunning when it comes to this kind of an invasion. Now remember, this technology is going to be handed over to someone, and it's going to be used for extremely evil intent. And by the way, I'm not saying don't use technology. There's a wonderful side to it. With one click of the mouse, you get the gospel around the earth in 10 seconds. So it's a wonderful side to technology. But these fellows revealed their true colors this last year. They don't care. They're proud of the fact that they're invading your life in your home. Just a few headlines here. A study from a Vanderbilt professor finds Google tracking is even creepier than you thought, and then Google spying on your real world movements, even if you have location history turned off. It's totally stunning what they're able to do. What is more stunning is what they'll do with it in that 7-year tribulation. And Google Earth, how the tech giant is helping the state spy on us. So I think this, as well as the mushrooming industry of artificial intelligence. Now, AI has been around for years, actually decades, but it has come out in the most prominent way in the last year. So, I mean, you've got robots that'll have a conversation with you, and they can have an interesting conversation with you. Ask it questions, it'll answer. Fascinating. And this particular article I saw, AI will be billions of times smarter than humans, and man needs to merge with it, experts say. So I think that is probably, at least in my lineup here, is the second stunning development of the last year. Again, all prophesied in the Bible, things to watch for. Now, a lot of these things blossom in the tribulation, and I keep emphasizing that. If they blossom full force in the tribulation, they're still casting a huge shadow today. All right, number 3 would be the rise of evil. And I'm just going to spend an extra minute on this, and it's pretty dark, but it's pretty important. Remember, 2 Timothy 3. In the last days, evil will wax worse and worse. The devil is busy. He knows he's short of time now. He knows his time is limited. And he's trying to make up for it. He's trying to make inroads like I never thought I would see. And return of ancient gods and the resurgence of paganism. Could do a whole hour just on that. We can do a whole hour just on the fact that the witch population has doubled as millennials cast off Christianity. Again, if this weren't so prophesied in the Bible, I would be more concerned. Today, I try to look at headlines as a herald of his coming rather than see the darkness, but they're still dark. Witches are planning a public hexing of Brett Kavanaugh. Now, look, let's realize hexing has gone on for centuries, okay? This isn't new. What is new is that it's in headlines. What is new is it is featured on Fox News. What is news is its headlines on Drudge Report. What is news is we're talking about it. The church is talking, the world is talking about it. It's seen as intriguing. It's seen as, it's just kind of cool when it really isn't. I don't know how many of you saw Tucker Carlson interview a male witch. This is a couple weeks ago on his program, talking about cursing Judge Kavanaugh. This past year, they cursed and hexed President Trump. So this is blatant in your face. Totally proud of the damage they think they're doing. I don't know that they're doing all that much damage. I mean, whose power is greater? But nonetheless, they're trying. They're trying to create chaos and destruction. High percentage of U.S. Christians embrace New Age beliefs. That is so true. Huge number of Christians now think that some of the I'll get more specific here as we move along. Think New Age beliefs are just fine. This next story is troubling, and Spencer Gifts in Chicago. It's a mall, store in a mall, and a pastor went in there from the Chicago area and saw T-shirts that say "Summon Up Demons." Now, you know, that's just what teenagers need to do, is buy t-shirt like this that's got a message, summon up demons. But again, because the hour is late, again, 2 Timothy 3:13, the last days evil will wax worse and worse. This is a growing phenomenon. And how many of you know that in September, right when the Kavanaugh hearings were at a gridlock, this Arch of Palmyra, let me tell you what the Arch of Palmyra is. That's a replica. It's an 11-ton replica of the Arch of Palmyra. This stood outside of the temple of Baal or Baal. And things that went on in the temple of Baal thousands of years ago in Syria. The ISIS destroyed the temple of Baal in Syria in 2015. This stood outside the temple of Baal. And so this replica has been going all over the world to major places and major events. 2015, it landed right in front of our state capitol, right when everybody was deadlocked over Judge Kavanaugh. I maintain there's a connection, okay? I just think there was. First of all, the temple of Baal was all about unspeakable things and practices of eliminating children, and I believe that the conflict over Judge Kavanaugh was probably about eliminating children by way of abortion as well. So I just think there's a connection. There's just a connection that took place in late September of 2018. And then how many times when you see a school shooting or whatever, the perpetrators, I heard voices telling me to do it. I heard voices. Now, again, this has gone on forever. It's not in headlines forever. It's been in headlines the last year, 2 years. So again, this evil is rising and rising and rising as the enemy is trying to say, how can I redeem the time and make the most of what I probably don't have much time left, but boy, I'm going to do as much damage as I can. Okay, point number 4. So we're moving more quickly now. And that would be the U.S. troop withdrawal from Syria. And Amir gives a wonderful overview of this and a couple of his more recent updates, but I'll just cover it briefly because, number one, I'm concerned for some of those, if we go ahead with this, if President Trump isn't going to reverse, and I don't think he is, I am concerned about the Christians who remain in Syria, the Kurds in Syria, but the Kurds are our friends. I'm afraid they could get annihilated. And some other groups as well are under great danger, more danger with U.S. troops. But we'll see. We'll see where this goes. But here's where I think this is significant. This is one of the most stunning poses for pictures that I've ever seen. You talk about the Bible being more up to date than Time magazine. I mean, here you've got Iran's Rouhani, you've got Vladimir Putin and Recep Erdogan, hand in hand, good buddies. Well, they're scheming. They got an evil intent. They're going to march to Israel and seize her wealth. And I think if U.S. troops pull out of Syria, I think that this is forming what you might see as a perfect land bridge from Iran to certainly the Mediterranean and probably all the way to Israel. Will they come by land? Will they come? Who knows? I just think it's interesting. I don't think that this is timing that is, I think it's orchestrated by God. I really do. I really do, because it's so late. And even the media is talking about it. U.S. pullout strengthens Iran land bridge to the Mediterranean. So even the media, and I was listening the day the announcement was made that Donald Trump would be pulling U.S. troops out of Syria. I was listening, happened to be Mark Levin, his talk show, radio show. Mark is he's a Jew who at least reads his Bible. Whether or not he's reading Gog, Magog, Ezekiel 38, 39, I don't know. But I'm quoting Mark that night. He said, I see it. This is not a Christian, okay? He says, I see a major Mideast war in 2019 with Turkey, Iran, and Russia coming against Israel. Here's an unbelieving Jew who gets it. Most of our churches don't even get it, but Mark Levin gets it. He said, I am so concerned. So even the secular world is looking at this and is very concerned about the whole issue. Trump's sudden Syria pullout will embolden ISIS and Iran allies warned. Okay, let's move on to point number 5. And what I'm trying to do is look at 10 things. Again, I could pick 110, but look at 10 things that I think happened in the last year, certainly the last 2-3 years, that have huge significance on our time today and in the new year here. And I think number 5 is the crisis in the Vatican. And I know some of you are former Catholics, and there may be some practicing Catholics here. And frankly, I hear from practicing Catholics, not a lot, but some practicing Catholics who say, boy, our church is out of control. And I am so embarrassed by the Vatican, and et cetera. And the Catholic Church's biggest crisis since the Reformation. So where is this leading? I don't know that we know, but I think my personal opinion is that a pope is going to become a false prophet. I'm not saying the current pope, though he may. The current pope is called the Vicar of the New World Order. He's called the Pope for the New World. He's called, talking about here, the New Roman Empire. He's a fellow who obviously thinks more about socialism and global warming and poverty and those kinds of issues than he does about the gospel. I don't think you hear him talking about that. But I think the instability in the Vatican should be watched. The fact that Catholics are getting disillusioned with the Vatican. And I believe a false prophet could arise, not saying he will, could arise out of the Vatican from the old Roman Empire. Again, I'm just suggesting we discern the times, okay? The sons of Issachar were men who understood the times. Our churches don't understand the times. That's why you're here at various events, because you want to understand the times. And the best way we can do that is to compare the Bible with what's happening. And I'm not talking about newspaper exegesis, okay? I'm talking about what the Bible predicts. Pastor Barry did that in the first message. What the Bible predicts. And if it's a tribulation event, again, it's casting a huge shadow today. Some of these events are church age events. So keep your eyes on the Catholic Church is in crisis, and its leaders are making it worse. Okay, let's move on here to point number 6, and that is the birth pangs. By the way, the birth pangs are global. I just interviewed a week ago a survivor of Paradise, California, Julie and Mark, and their dog got out barely. And I don't have to tell you that birth pangs around the world are simply completely, they're more intense, they're more frequent, and obviously this culminates, blossoms again in the tribulation, and quite frankly, the tribulation birth pangs will make some of the things going on now pale in significance, but don't tell that to somebody who's just gone through this. Or some of you remember Hurricane Michael a few months ago, Florida. But it's global. It's not just U.S. They are getting more intense. They are getting just absolutely more frightening. Imagine being caught up in something like this. I know that some Calvary chapels are doing what they can for the Paradise folks in California, and it's an amazing story. And Julie and Mark are witnessing to anybody they can in the region there up in Paradise. And you know what they're mainly finding? And this is a foreshadowing of the tribulation. They're mainly finding, when they witness to these survivors, hand shaking at God. We don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it. Now some are, thankfully. Some are listening. Some are responding, thankfully. But too many are mad at God. And they're going to move on. They're going to move on into eternity without him. This is just a little, kind of a little graph here, starting in 1900. And the high point, I think, is 2000 and coming down a little bit since that's around the world. Some of these stunning disaster events, 1900 to the present. So you can just see there how things are definitely accelerating as global events get more and more intense, painful, shocking, and heartbreaking. Again, let's try to look at headlines as a herald of his coming, or we're going to get terribly discouraged. Okay, let's move on. Point number 7. I'm going to spend just an extra few minutes on this. It's so important, and that would be a crisis in character. Romans 1 and 2 Timothy 3, character in mankind plus worsening strong delusion. Pastor Barry talked about the strong delusion this morning. I think God wants us to know there's strong delusion in the land. There's strong delusion in the world. And my goodness, when people are born and the most obvious thing with anybody's perception of reality is, well, I'm male or I'm female. Not anymore. Because of strong delusion, because of the decline in the character of man, because of, and this happens to be 8-year-old drag queens. If your parents won't let you do drag, you need new parents. Now, I'm going to show a video. It's a 1-minute video of this kid here in just a moment. And his name is Desmond the Amazing. He's an 11-year-old. 11-year-old drag queen. Now, again, what am I talking about? I'm talking about Romans 1 that talks about a coming depravity of man. I believe that's now, and it's going to get worse and worse into the tribulation. It'll be off the chart. I'm talking about 2 Timothy 3, the last days. Men will be lovers of self, money, proud, boastful, arrogant. And that's actually directed at the church. But that's going to be the character of mankind in the last days. Now, I'm going to show a 1-minute clip, and here's what I want you to look at. You can look at Desmond the Amazing, but I want you to look at his mother. When a kid's mother is bursting with pride over allowing her now 11-year-old to be a girl, we got a serious problem. Houston, there is a problem, okay? Let me just see if this is going to play.
At some point in the parade, I was kicking my leg so hard that my sandals fell off and flew into the air. I remember everyone just cheering me on and screaming. Felt fabulous. I am 10 and my mom is the best mom in the world.
When Desmond was younger, he kept asking if he could be in the Pride Parade. It's one day where people are free to express themselves the way that they like to. We thought it would be helpful for him to see that there are other people that prefer dressing like he does. Sometimes people just come up and they need a hug or they're crying because they're so overwhelmed.
I'm kind of nervous because I feel like there's going to be some more negative comments after. But most of the part, I feel like I'm going to do it really good. They need to hear my voice so they can know that you don't have to pretend to be someone else. Just be yourself.
Now, do you think this kid was born this way? No, he's indicative of our society today, and a parent who's proud of all of this and who's encouraged him, has outfitted him, has taught him how to walk like a girl. You talk about child abuse. Again, this is the decline of the character of mankind predicted in the Bible, predicted for a last generation. You talk about, here are clergy blessing an abortion, late-term abortion clinic, calling it holy. Look at the glee on the eyes of those 3 women. You talk about no more natural affection. Aren't those women, wouldn't they probably be mothers? But they're without natural affection because they're having a party dedicating a facility that is a late-term abortion clinic and calling it holy. Again, strong delusion, strong depravity, all predicted. If it weren't predicted, we could sit here and cry, but it is all predicted to happen. And ultimately, and you know what God's going to say pretty soon? Enough of this. I'm coming back to end this stuff. He's not going to take it much longer. He's given mankind the free will to do it. And look how we mess it up. And he's going to say, enough is enough is enough. Jesus has to come back, put an end to it, get this tribulation going, get the millennial kingdom set up. Moving on here, I hope I made my point, okay? It's rough out there. You folks in California, you probably know a lot more so than we do back in Minnesota. Not that we don't have aberration in Minnesota too, and I'm going to spare you the details, but it's beyond weather, I'll guarantee you that. Okay, number 8, the escalation of apostasy and the mocking of Bible prophecy. Now, again, I don't want to get anybody in trouble here, so I'm kind of going to avoid getting into detail. But I did not think I would live to see. I mean, I grew up by the time I got to church, which was early teen years. I wasn't in church before that, but it was a Bible-believing, prophecy-loving, apostasy, warning about apostasy to come. I never thought I'd see the day. I probably couldn't have been prepared for ministry if I hadn't had that church, because it did prepare me, but my goodness, I didn't think I'd see some of the things going on today. Now we've got Andy Stanley, who's refashioning Christianity. He's telling us to unhitch from the Old Testament. He has the second largest church in America, so people are following him. We've got a movement, I'm going to not go into detail, but we've got a movement that I am concerned about. It's called the New Apostolic Reformation, and it's the fastest growing denomination in the world. It's independent, but it's been titled the New Apostolic Reformation. And it's kind of set aside the Bible so that they can focus more on miracles and some of the signs and wonders and healings. And I've been healed, so I believe in healing, and I know God is still healing today, but these folks will carry everything as a couple of steps too far. Again, it's the fastest growing denomination, and it's going to be focusing on things that are not healthy. Here's one illustration. How many of you know what grave soaking is? This is what these people will do. This is a kind of a story in Charisma magazine, and it's people will lay on the grave of a deceased saint and hope that the spirit of the dead saint will come up into them, called grave soaking. Now, I didn't think I'd live to see the day when Christians, and these folks call themselves evangelicals, I didn't think I'd live to see the day when we'd have folks out in cemeteries grave soaking. Give me a break. This is really off the chart. It's all predicted, this kind of... What is the most frequently referred to issue for the last days is the rise of false teaching, doctrine of demons. These kind of things are going to come into the church. Wolves among the flock. And we've got Hindu Kundalini in the church today. We've got yoga. We've got Christian yoga. We've got all sorts of folks are drunk in the spirit, etc. And I don't believe things that are out of control are of God. And they're just absolutely on overdrive in our churches today. I'm very, very concerned about it. Very concerned. Because at the same time, you won't hear any of these churches talking about the lateness of the hour. Jesus is coming back. We need to get our lives in order, because they're not focusing on that. They're focusing on gimmicky type things, signs and wonders, etc. So I'm very, very concerned. There's going on right now, it's called Christ Alignment Destiny Cards. That's Christianized tarot cards. Next, we're going to have Christianized Ouija boards, Christianized fortune-telling, Christianized seances. You see, everything's going way too far. Way too far. Things I never thought I'd live to see. All of the things I'm talking about have gone on overdrive, I think, in the last year. That's why I'm talking about just 10 things that I see hyper overdrive in the last year. In my hometown of Minneapolis, St. Paul, we have a seminary, Luther Seminary. Just a few months ago, they had a drag in the Luther Seminary chapel, drag queen performance in their chapel. They thought it was fine. You talk again. What did Barry talk about? This delusion. common sense has been blinded. Again, God's going to see things like this and say, enough is enough is enough is enough. I'm bringing it to an end. I'm bringing it to an end. That's the good news. So don't let this get you really down, because there is good news. Now, at the same time, the mocking of the truth is completely off the chart. Some of you are trying to find a church and you're having a hard time. I know. I hear from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you that you're having a hard time, and you're getting a lot of your information and your inspiration online, various radio, TV. But the mocking at the same time, the mocking of the King is coming, is also off the chart. Jan Markell's End Time Hysteria Conference, that was in headlines. Excuse me? End Time Hysteria Conference. People are getting saved. People are getting informed. People are getting encouraged. People are hearing the truth. You folks came. I'm glad you came to this hysteria conference, okay? Glad you came. Thank you, Barrett Stagner, for your ridiculous hysteria conference. You should be ashamed of yourself. Even if you like cats, you should be ashamed of yourself. So, Hank Hanegraaff, on air, 30 years. The daughter of Walter Martin works with me, as does Walter Martin's son-in-law, Joel and Kevin Rishi, and they can tell you, nobody approved of Mr. Bible Answer Man going on day after day after day, mocking the rapture. Again, it's all part of the signs of the times, mocking the rapture, denouncing Israel and the Jews, something terrible. He called me out on air 2 years ago, almost to the date, because I air on some places where he airs. And he said, on air, this woman, meaning me, is a blight on our times. Well, I'm only telling the truth, Hank. So, anyway, but this is expected. Count it all joy. Count it all joy. Now I'm going back further than a year in this next little clip. It's a very short 39-second clip. This is beyond a year. This is to April of 2016, but it shows the mocking. Okay, now, in April of 2016, Michelle Bachmann was on my program, as she often is, and we were talking about President Obama at the time, and what we talked about on my program got all the way back to him, and this is, here again, perfect illustration of mocking, scoffing, and again, of the truth, and of the most important truth that's probably out there.
Just this week, Michelle Bachmann actually predicted that I would bring about the biblical end of days. Now that's a legacy. That's big. I mean, Lincoln, Washington, they didn't do that.
Oh, they loved it. They loved him making fun of truth and making fun of our glorious future. They loved it because we're in that generation. We're in those days. Again, if we just looked at this, without the hope of, okay, it's in alignment with what's predicted. As long as we know it's in alignment with what's predicted, we can take all of this. Imagine the world doesn't have, no wonder they're eating and drinking and running around and carousing and trying to keep their minds off of what's going on, because they don't have an eternal perspective. For some reason, we are privileged to have an eternal perspective. Not only that, we're privileged to have the hour is late perspective. And thankfully, events like this and things you hear online, TV, etc., reinforce that, though our churches may not. So, again, I'm going to move here on to point number 9. I'm just touching briefly on things that I think were highlights, lowlights, however you look at it, from the last year and a half. This happened to go back to 16. But more recently, and I'm intrigued by the accelerated temple talk. We have nothing to do with the future temple in Israel, okay? It's the third temple. It's the tribulation temple. So Christians... And I know there are some Christians who think they should financially support it and things like that. please don't go there, but nonetheless, the accelerated temple talk, again, that's happening in the tribulation. Look at the shadow the tribulation is casting on us today. And again, Sanhedrin invites 70 nations to a Hanukkah dedication of an altar for the third temple. This was just in December. The garments are ready. Some of the utensils are ready. Some of the priests are waiting. Things are getting in line. Somebody asked about the Ark of the Covenant on Wednesday night at Pastor Jack's church, and I think that remains a mystery. I think Amir could address that more effectively. Lighting the fire of the altar of the third temple, December 10th, 2018. I think this is huge. Now, maybe it's decades away yet, third temple. I don't think so. I don't think so. Remember, the Antichrist is going to be involved in that temple. The church will be gone when all of this culminates. They've got a priestly blessing going on here. This is just in December, so this is just weeks ago. They've got priests in training. So there's a segment of the Jews in Israel that take this very seriously. There was a red heifer born in August. Okay, there have been other red heifers. And they sprout, 3 little pieces of fur that are white, and they're disqualified. Well, they think this one won't be we'll see. Will we ever see this? No, I don't believe we'll ever see that. I consider that irrelevant. The point is they're talking about it. They're talking about it, they're preparing for it, they're planning for it. All that means is it's a sign that we should be paying attention, because it's a tribulation event casting a huge shadow on us today. Huge shadow. Now, I've kind of kept the probably the most positive of the 10 here for the last. And obviously that would be in 2018, Israel had her 70th anniversary, plus moving the office from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now, lots of presidents promised it, they never delivered. This one did deliver. So, praise the Lord for however this plays into. Yeah, I mean, it's huge. Because the fig tree has blossomed. Now, many of you have been to Israel and you have seen the incredible. Here's what Mark Twain said in 1861. He said that there's hardly a tree or a shrub anywhere, even the olive and the cactus, those fast friends of the most worthless soil, had almost deserted the country. That's 1881. 1881, Mark Twain, not that long ago. And it was a wasteland. The Jews had to come back and love the land back to life. And I don't know what's so difficult for people to believe when it comes to, first of all, what's the length of a generation? I think this defines a generation. Psalm 90, the days of our life are 70 years or maybe 80. And that's why I think 70, for Israel to turn 70, there were 70 nations invited by the Sanhedrin. Daniel's 70th week is another 70. I think it's an important number in God's geometry. It's important. And Jesus says in Matthew 24 that the generation, let's assume it's 70 years, maybe 80, the generation that sees Israel's rebirth, Matthew 24, will see all these signs fulfilled, including tribulation signs, so the church is not present at that time. So that's why I think what happened May 14th, 2018, reflecting on May 14th, 1948, is so significant, plus the embassy move. Wow, you got 2 for 1 there. That's incredible. What Satan meant for evil through the Holocaust, God did use some of it for good, because the UN voted, partly a sympathy vote, to let this bedraggled group of people who have been chased from pillar to post, from country to country. Like my grandparents came from Russia trying to get away from some of the struggles of Russian pogroms, etc. They came to, of all places, Why didn't they pick Florida or, they picked northern Minnesota, where it's very cold, okay? Northern Minnesota, they became merchants to the miners in northern Minnesota, opened furniture stores and things like that, and they made an all-new life for themselves. They came legally, too, folks. They came legally, okay? But the rattling of the dry bones, surely I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live. And it goes on to say in that wonderful chapter of Ezekiel 37, it goes on to ask, can these bones live? Can these bones live? Many of you have been there. I've been there, I think, 6, 7 times. You've seen the incredible rebirth, prospering, and then you've seen them stand up on their feet. A great army, a great army. She's one of the military mights of the world. This is a nation the size of New Jersey. That's one of the military mights of the world. In 2018, she was ranked the 8th most powerful country in the world. Is that God fulfilling his promises or what? Incredible promise that he has fulfilled. I mean, 8th most powerful country in the world. It was knocked out of existence for hundreds of years. 1880, late 1880s, they started to trickle. Balfour Declaration, 1917, that was a great boost. And we know the rest of the history. And then in the last year came this coin. It's Donald Trump and King Cyrus, because that's what the Jews think of Donald Trump. They put him on a coin with King Cyrus. Now, who was Cyrus? King Cyrus allowed the Jews to come back and rebuild their temple from the Babylonian captivity. I think they're suggesting that Donald Trump will create an atmosphere that will allow them to rebuild their temple. That's why you see all this temple talk. On the back of that coin, I believe there's an image of a future temple. God he's simply fulfilling his promises. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, and I will not leave you until I have done what I promised you. Now, that's a verse I think you can take to heart as well. It's given to the Jews, but I believe he's saying this. If you're going through a really rough time here today, and some of you are, I believe he's saying to you, I will not leave you until I've done all that I've promised for you. Now, going back to Israel, kings, generals, Führers, pharaohs, U.S. presidents, European leaders have come against this country to try to obliterate her. The church has come against her with replacement theology, with this phony divestment, boycott, sanction, BDS, boycott, divestment, sanction movement has come against her. I don't know who wrote these words, how odd of God to choose the Jews, but not as odd as those who choose the Jewish God, but spurn the Jews. And most of the church is doing that today, one way or another. If it's not replacement theology, the church is Israel. It's, again, the BDS movement, which has infected every mainline denomination. It's even creeping into our evangelical church because of social justice, which is the new passion of the evangelical church, social justice. Serve the immigrant, serve the poor, and all of that, and all of those good works are fine, but the preaching of the gospel and the message of salvation is being set aside. And also is being set aside is the church's once appreciation, at least for Israel. The evangelical church has usually been a strong friend of Israel. Many still are, but some are leaving. So what I want to do is I just want to close here. I'm going to play a 2-minute clip. This goes back to May 14th, 2018, 70th anniversary celebration in Israel, because I want to end here on a high note and watch the drone light show here as the Israelis celebrate anniversary number 70 I think they were in awe. Even if they're secular, I suspect some of them are in awe of how far they've come since Mark Twain said, hey, not even a cactus can survive here. And now you're the 8th most powerful country in the world, most influential technology, the things that they have to offer. Let's watch. Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to make just a couple of comments, and I'm winding down here, so bring it into home landing here. Hang on, let me go back. I've got some products. They're on my website. I don't have a table here today. olivetreeviews.org. We get books, DVDs, some things I've written, DVDs, and some other products. We actually carry Amir's book, which I believe is back there. So my radio program, I'll say more about that. It airs. You can catch it on olivetreeviews.org. It airs on lots of radio stations. I invite you to Understanding the Times 2019, September 21st. If you can't make it, it will be live streamed. I'm going to have Pastor Jack, Amir, Pastor J.D. Farag, Pastor Robert Jeffress, and myself will be sharing on September 21st. Tickets don't go on sale until probably summer. And we have a few people who attend this event, so we're kind of limiting the attendance by church asked us to. And then, again, you can check my website where the program airs. We're on about 830 stations. Listen online at your leisure, olivetreeviews.org. Those are some of the networks that we're on, including CSN, and I'm meeting some of you who are listening to the CSN network. You can see syndication at Olive Tree Views to find out just where we air. And you can download the oneplace.com mobile app if you just want to download an app. The program will be downloaded to your devices every Saturday morning. I have a lot of the folks you know as guests on a weekly basis. It's a once-a-week program. Now, here's how I want to wrap things up. Your first two messages today have talked to you about things are winding down, winding up, however you want to look at it. And that's good. That's exciting news for almost all of us because, you know what? We're weary of this land. We really are. And I'm speaking from personal experience here, too. We know that our King is coming, and he's coming soon. And you say, and some will say to you, well, you know, our times are so dark, and that's why we are told to be a light to the world. And I know many of you write me, and you say your church won't talk about it. Well, you talk about it then. And you say, well, people scoff at me, and they mock me. Well, you're fulfilling Scripture. Just tell them you're fulfilling prophecy with your scoffing and your mocking. And don't give up. Don't give up on it. You know, God has let us in on an inside view of his end-time plan. Thankfully to some teachers, some of whom are here today, that you can better understand the times. And I say, you know, somebody said to me, I'm a part of the Get Me Out of Here Soon club. Well, yeah, I am too. I am too. And I know Pastor Farag, who's a good friend of mine, one of my dearest pastor friends, says, and I echo the same, if it weren't for the assurance of a pre-trib, any minute rapture, we would go out of our minds. Just look at Desmond the Amazing. You watch that, we'd go out of our minds without the hope of his return, not in the middle of the tribulation, not at the end of the tribulation, but perhaps tomorrow, okay? That's the hope we've been given. We are privileged to know what time it is. Most of the world and most of the church doesn't know what time it is. They have no idea, nor do they want to hear. So let's occupy till he comes. Now, there may be even one today. I'm going to back up Pastor Barry and what he said in his close. There may be one, there may be 100. I don't know. And you may say, this is scary and I don't understand it. And how do I assure myself and how do I comfort myself to know that I'm not going to go through some of the things predicted for the last of the last days that the church is taken out, and then the terrible 7-year tribulation of literal hell on earth breaks out. But even worse than that is eternity without God. That's worse than the tribulation. Is eternity and you don't know how to avoid that. It is so simple. To me, that is what is so shocking about salvation. It is so simple. Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ and you shall be saved. Call on his name today. If you don't know him, call on his name today. Turn your life around. It's called repentance. Confess that you are a sinner. Turn your life around and say, Lord Jesus, I want you to take control of my life. I have messed it up. If that's you today, do that. And you're going to join the rest of us in eternity for a grand, grand party. And you can say with all of us today, Maranatha, Maranatha, he is coming today, perhaps today, perhaps today. Okay? Thank you.